Hello and welcome to Lesson 10 of Software Design and Development for Higher Computing Science. Today we're going to create a substring. Now there are many ways of creating substrings, and Python does them slightly differently to a lot of other programming languages in the sense that they really treat a string as an array of characters. Now if you're not sure what a substring is, it's just a smaller part of a string. So this is a string, and there are smaller parts to it, so we could highlight just part of it. That's a substring. Let me show you a quick example of how to get a substring. I'm going to create a variable. I'm just going to call it substring, and it's going to be equal to my string, but just like an array, I'm going to, in the square brackets, identify a character or an index to pull out. And then I will print the substring. So this is printing the character at index 5. So what's that going to be? T. It's T because index 0 is the C, 1 is the O, 2 is the M, 3, 4, 5 is the T. Just like an array, indexes start at 0. So this is how you get a single letter, a single character out of a string. But what if we want more? Well, we could, I suppose, do my string at location 6, index 6, and then get the next letter. But that would take an awful long time if you wanted to build an actual substring, and it would programmatically be very frustrating. Could you imagine having to type all of this out? There is an easier way. Instead of adding on, what we can do inside these brackets, we can add a colon and indicate where we want to end our substring. So let's just do 6. So we're going to start at index 5 and end at index 6. But why is it only getting one character? Well, it's kind of like if you imagine your cursor highlighting. Okay. Now the first number here, it's kind of like where you start with your cursor before the character. And the next number is where your cursor will end before that character. So if we start before the 5th and we end before the 6th, what we're doing is we're clicking here and highlighting that. So in order to get two characters, we really need a difference of 2 between these numbers. Bloop, there we go. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. But what if we want the last 4 letters of this string? Well, what we could do is we could do a bit of trial and error. We could just say, all right, I want to go from the 18th to the 23rd letter, and that gives me Scottle. All right, that's not quite what I want. Let's bump this up a bit. 22 to the 26th. Try that. Yeah, I did it. I did it. What a beast. But what if someone changes the length of this? What if it's the Computing Sciences Scotland? What are we getting now? Oh, no. So this program obviously isn't very good, and it took me a little bit of time, took a bit of trial and error to even come up with this. What we could do, I suppose, is instead of typing in numbers, we could get the length of the string, my string, and take 4 away from it, and then end on the length of my string, and see if that works. Hey, that works, but this looks ugly. I don't like this. Imagine having to type that in every single time. No bueno. So let's try something else. Now here is something that's quite useful to know. If we have the colon and we have a number in here, if we leave one of the sides blank, it's going to assume that if it's on the second side, it's going to assume you're going all the way to the end. And if it's the left-hand side that's blank, it's going to assume that you're going from the start up to this point. So this is going to get the first 4 characters. There we are. And if we type in 22 here, it's going to go from the 22nd character all the way to the end. There we are. But again, if the length of this changes, if we add something in here, then this 22 is no longer any good. Oh no. But you can see how we could use this. Now, another interesting thing is you may remember from previous lessons that if we type in a negative number, like -1, this gets the last character. -1 gets the last character. There we are. So what we could do is we could say start from the last character and then go all the way to the end. Well, that's exactly the same as what we just did, but what if we start from the second last character? Oh, now it's interesting. What if it's the 4th last character? Pretty good, eh? Or if you only want the first 4, what you could do is say end at the first 4. Not bad. Or let's say you want to get everything except the last 4. Well, we could type -4 here. There we go, we've missed out the last 4. So this is what's called a string slice, sometimes known as a list slice. But all we're doing is we're slicing up the string, we're substringing it. So this is how you get a substring in Python. Now, why would you ever need this? Well, let's say you're generating a password. We're going to get the user's name from the keyboard. And we're going to generate a password using random. We could generate a password that starts with a string that is a random number, .randint, between 1 and 9. So it's a single number. And then we could add the first 3 letters of their name. User name, first 3. So we're going to start at the start and land 3 characters in. Let's see what this looks like. Oh yes, 5COM, because my name is computing. Or we could do some really cool stuff that all the cool kids do now, and we can combine 2 Pokemon. Oh my goodness, so we've got Pokemon 1, input, enter the name of Pokemon 1, and we do the same for the second one. And then what we do is we say new Pokemon equals, and we will get the first half of the first one. So it's going to be Pokemon 1, and we're going to start from the start, and we're going to end at however long Pokemon 1 is over 2. But because that gives us a float, we're going to have to convert it to an int. And then we're going to add the second half of Pokemon 2. Oh, this is going to be great. But this needs to go in here at the start. So we're going to start halfway up and end all the way to the end. And this is for Pokemon 2. Let's give it a blast. Now, I'm a huge Pokemon fan, and I like Charizard, and I like Magikarp. So now we have Charcarp. Right, so there you go. Substrings. We can do all sorts of things with substrings. There are many uses for them, and hopefully this very quick lesson has been enough to show you how to use them. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.